Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Rev Love Shorty, and at some point in the future, I'm sure I'll develop the video editing skills to make it look like I'm holding up a cover of a comic book right now. I don't have those abilities, and I don't have the comic book because I got sent something for free the other day. Basically, a while ago, I reviewed Ninja Funk issue 1. Turns out the guy who wrote it, or created it, liked the review, and he sent me a free PDF of the entire collection. Basically asked me if I want to do a review, and even said maybe down the line I might be able to do a live interview with him. And I'm bringing this up because I want to be absolutely clear that this is a freebie I've gotten, but at no point have I agreed to anything to get this freebie other than that I might review it. I didn't even say I would 100% review it. I'm kind of happy to get free things there. I'm a Yorkshireman. That's why I don't have a copy of it. We've sold out of our single issues and I don't have the trade in stock right now. So this is literally just me pretending that there's a thing there. Because Ninja Funk was great. I enjoyed issue 1. We were selling in single issues that came out, but it never blew the world up for our store. We, I think, at most had like 2 people a month down for it. But just because low sales in a small market town in the north of England doesn't mean it's not a great comic book. And this is a great comic book. I do have some criticisms. He might turn down the live interview once he hears what his criticisms are, but overall I liked it. Because very early on I got a pretty strong vibe from it, which was punk rock Guardians of the Galaxy. And then, as I was carried on reading it through this trade, also a little bit of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, in the end notes for this book, the creator specifically says he was going for a Guardians of the Galaxy meets Borderlands kind of thing. And I get that. The Borderlands thing, yeah, it's got the same kind of humour in it, and it's also got quite a lot of ultra-violence. Makes perfect sense. But my vibe and what the creator intended are a little bit different. I think it's worth talking about the stuff I got from it. Now, I don't mind admitting I could be wrong here. Let's face it, the guy who created this comic book probably knew what he was doing. So I'm going to go through the 3 elements I got from it and use them to basically describe the comic book to you and try and give you a solid review of a few different elements. Like I said, there's going to be a little bit of criticism in here, but for the most part, this is a solid, good read, and I liked it. I'm going to start with the main reason, punk rock vibe. This came across very early on in the artwork styling for it. It is a very loose art style, and I do not mean this in any way critical at all. I generally love this kind of thing. It shows that there is heart and emotion put into it. The person who did the artwork clearly cared about it. One of my big criticisms of most Marvel books is when they just look Marvel in-house style, because it looks so totally impersonal. There's no empathy or emotion put on the page here. There's far much more effort being put into making something look correct than good. And those are 2 different things that really need to be singled out because they're going to come up repeatedly through this review. And the punk rock ethos comes through the artwork because it is just not necessarily making things right and correct, but making it good and interesting. And I'm way more in favour of that. When we do get to action sequences, they're a little bit confusing at times, but that's fine. Again, if you've ever seen a punk rock show live on stage, I mean, just a bit of context here. I'm actually not a punk myself. I'm a metalhead. I really like stuff like Metallica and Slayer and Gorgoroth and Zealanada and Bloodywood, but I like some punk as well. I went to see Risky and the Ridicule show not long ago. A very, very good friend of mine recommended to them, and they were excellent. It was frenetic and full of energy on stage, and that's the vibe you get when you see this combat on the page. It looks brilliant, and it looks energetic, and it looks kinetic. It's exactly what you want from it. Also, it's worth pointing out that the colouring is beautiful. I mean, I'm not an artist, or at least I'm not for a long time. It looks like watercolour over ink, and it's a style I quite liked myself and I used to paint, and yeah, it's cool. It also shows off what you can do with colour palettes within world. All the bad guys are much more washed out in their colouring. They've still got a variety to them, and they still look interesting. There's no, like, boredom going on here. When you compare it to the good guys, including one who's wearing mostly white, when you just have colour drops in there, they are far more vibrant, far deeper as well, and that really, really does stand out. But the punk rock thing isn't just about the way it looks. It's about the story as well. This is an alternate version of Earth, and it is a story of music, or at least vibration and how music interacts with everything else. It's different enough that when you look at the map at the back, how do you like maps at the back of books, it's clearly America after some kind of event, but there's no telling that this is actually some post-apocalyptic event or if it's just an alternate reality. So I'm going to, in my head, headcanon it, alternate reality. And the punk aesthetic and the punk story comes through from the idea that there is an organisation trying to put out music, but there's individuals, anarchists, if you will, who want to break that down and do their own thing, basically by creating a more perfect harmonic frequency. But, and here's where it starts getting a bit more deep, and I do like it for this, the perfect harmonic frequency isn't necessarily it being perfect. It is everything discordant. And I mentioned punk stuff and some Scandinavian black metal in there. Discordancy is beautiful to my ear when listening to music. I like that raucous sound you get on stage for punk bands. I like the fact that in the 90s, Scandinavian black metal was putting out deliberately poorly recorded things to show that it's more about what they were trying to do than the end result, all of which is fantastic. And we have a company, a corporation called the Bad Music Corporation, BAD. I'm sure that stands for something, I can't remember what it is off my head though. But it's not just about the fact that it's bad music, it's about the fact that it's really heavily produced. It is a product of the music machine. Basically, for people who don't know, there are entire corporations set up to go and find popular music and find out what all these popular music things have in common. Distill that down to those elements, then recreate it, homogenize it, and sell it on. It is a music machine. And it creates things which technically are great. But that doesn't mean they're good. And again, we go to the way I look to the artwork here. Here comes my first criticism as well, because one of the people who actually work with the Queen Bad is a guy, I forgot his name off the top of my head, I do apologise for this one, who does country music. And his power is, he understands the vibrations of love when it comes to music, and or the frequencies of love. And he's wearing the pink outfit and the pink Stetson, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Cowboy music, Western love going in with the bad music kind of thing. I get that. That's like an overproduced kind of thing. But when you read the back matter, there's a specific moment where it points out that he might not actually be that country at all. He could be some middle-class kind of guy, some suburbanite who wanted to make music and saw that as a way of making music which could be seen as successful. And it's like, yeah, that should have been a little bit more front and centre. There's not enough. That's hardly anything that I can remember which indicates that within the text. Yes, back matter is cool, and I'm not saying you can't be subtle in how you tell stories, but I think putting that a little bit more front and centre could have added to the sense of what the bad music company is trying to do. Right. I think that's all the points I want to touch on for punk. What next? Guardians of the Galaxy. Come on, Guardians of the Galaxy is all about music. At least the MCU version of it is. Watch all the stuff they do. There's always music involved. You get Rocket Raccoon's character growth involving music. This is also not an anthology, what word I'm looking for, an ensemble. It is a bunch of people working together. An awful lot of comic books can get away with this, but there's still an awful lot of room for solo or leader kind of projects. This is not about that. There is a leader. We're going to talk about the back matter again now, because again, every single character gets their own little notice and little stories, their background, but also a stat line, like they are top trump cards. And the leader isn't actually that good. He's above average at everything, like pretty mean across the board, like sixes all the way down. But other people in his gang have way better scores in a variety of things. One of them is like incredibly powerful, and they have to tone this cat down. But he is the leader for a reason. I think that comes across really nicely, that he gives them a reason to apply themselves. Guardians of the Galaxy is about like a found family. It is about finding a reason to work together to accomplish something, rather than just doing it because it's a cool thing to do, it's the right thing to do, it's what goes against the norm, it's what goes against authority. Again, we go to the punk thing. It is very much about tearing down power structures and doing something better. Also, and I've got to say this, I do love Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm reading the current one at the moment. When I had the Guardians of the Galaxy vibe in my head, it was a 100% positive comparison. 100% like that kind of thing. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about Avatar: Last Airbender. Now, he went for Borderlands, and again, I totally get that. But the reason I want to talk about Avatar is it's more about the world building at this point, because yes, it's a frenetic and anarchic story, and it is brilliant in all the things it does. Of all the world building, though, doesn't feel like it's anarchic, it doesn't feel punk at all, it feels very grounded. And the reason I went for Avatar is because all the super-powered characters, well, almost all of them, can use harmonic frequencies to do things, which feels a little bit more like the Avatar's abilities to basically use the different elements. We have different types of music, treble and bass and things like that, all of which are part of the same power structure, and it's how basically different people use those things for whatever they're trying to accomplish. I like this. It shows a lot more thought put into it than just here's some cool ideas on paper, let's make a comic book about them. There's clearly been some background working out going on here. And again, when you read the end notes, you get a lot more detail, and it shows that they put some effort in, and I love that for it. But it also really nicely ties everything together, because it goes right back to the beginning to the punk rock feel. Because this is a story of people who have the same kind of powers, but some of them doing what they're doing to maintain power structures, to maintain a breakdown of us and them, to keep the people with money at the top. Whereas the lower down, the anarchic kind of nature of it, that's more about providing for everyone on equal footing, to reach as many people as possible and make it free at that point for them. And it's punk rock, and it's Avatar, and yet it's Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, all this would make you think, damn, Joy loves it, and I do. I do genuinely love it. But it is also the anarchic side of things lets it down a little bit on occasion. First off, I think in the first couple of pages, there's literally a typo, which obviously didn't get picked up, got lettered incorrectly. Somebody replaced an N with a K for whatever reason. And when you notice that, I start noticing other things as well. And as you go through it, there's quite a few bits where I think the dialogue could have been tightened up a little bit. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's bad writing. It just means, in my mind, stuff could have flowed a little bit smoother, flowed a bit clearer. Now, if you're going for this on a stylistic point of view, you're certainly going to argue against that saying, but Shorty, you've said repeatedly, this is an anarchic kind of story. Surely it not being perfect is part of it. The artwork you said is a loose style, yes, and I do totally agree with all of that. This is the smallest of small criticisms. It is literally just, if I'm reading something and I have to stop and go back and reread something, like even if it's just one sentence, where the intent isn't to delve deeper into its meaning, to read it out loud and get the cadence and the rhythm of what they're saying, but just to make sure I've understood it, which happened, I think, twice, just where I think the words weren't quite how I expected them to be. On the second read, it did make sense, but it slowed me down just a little bit and pulled me slightly out of the story. And I think that kind of can be tidied up, and it could have been just that tiny a little bit better. Overall, though, I did love it, and I'm going to recommend it. I'm going to say if you go to a local comic book store and they've got it, grab it and read it. It's going to carry on. There's going to be a sequel following it. I think it's good, because it ends in a really good position where they're clearly, again, adding more to the world building, and the story has not finished. All in all, very, very cool comic book. Sorry this has gone over 5 minutes, but what are you going to do? I was reading an entire trade, not one single comic book. That's it from me for now, though. Until I see you again, look after yourself, everyone. Stay safe. Bye!